Hey, I'm back. Okay, welcome back, and welcome back to me. So this is going to be an open discussion. So if you guys were at our Strong Tower conference, or if you guys have any questions that you want to pop on in here for, I did put the link to the StreamYard in the live chat. So you guys can check that on out and join us live there. So first of all, over the last couple of weeks, we had the opportunity to go to the Our Strong Tower conference held by Ministry to Muslims. If you're not familiar with that, it is a great opportunity to engage with fellow Christian apologists, as well as learn and also apply some of those teachings that we go over at the conference. So now I've done a few conferences over this year. I've been able to make it out to some of them. And for me, the major thing that I look for at these conferences are connections, getting to know people, seeing other like-minded Christians who want to reach out to Muslims or reach out to the lost in general. And I'd say our Strong Tower was perfect for this. In fact, we were able to enjoy a lot of the speakers, able to learn some stuff. But again, my main thing was the contacts that we made. And there were quite a few fellow Christian YouTubers that we met out there. Of course, one of the speakers, Hatun Tash, we met her, ended up being able to hang out with her, do some ministry with her. That was fantastic. We also ran into God Logic. My wonderful wife was there. We'll see if she wants to join me later. But right now she is taking care of little ones. And they have to be taken care of. Very, very well. Hey, welcome. So this is a bit more of a relaxed one where I'm just talking about the conference we just went to. So we'll be going over a few things there. So again, this is open for anyone to join me at any given time. So we'll go over what to sort of expect. So if you guys were able to be there, fantastic. If not, well, sorry you missed out. I know there was an online option where you could get online and see the courses. I know that they streamed my channel as well as many other channels. I know there's some debates out there that were hosted by Ministry to Muslims. I ended up being involved in one of those, which is pretty cool. So that being said, it really was a great time. And if you weren't there in person, you really kind of missed out. So yes, he was. It was fantastic time. We got run into so many. I'll probably end up missing some of you guys that we ran into while out there, but I did want to mention some of the people you guys might be aware of. I mentioned Hatun Tash, Anthony Rogers. Again, I end up running into Anthony Rogers quite a bit at these conferences. It seems he's very, very active in wanting to engage at these conferences. So it's always good to see him. Also, Eddie Dalcour, Dr. Eddie Dalcour, again, another pleasure to see him. Ran into a surprise. David Wood showed up. And also Vocab Malone was there, which was, we knew he was going to be there, and I was looking forward to seeing him again. We also met Samuel Green, which was one of the speakers there. We ended up spending a lot of time with him, and that was pretty cool. We ended up spending a lot of time together, engaging with Muslims, reaching out to the people, and that was really, again, the type of community action I wanted to see at these sort of events. To be honest with you, as far as the conference itself, it's expensive. Not so much the cost of the conference, but everything out there in California is quite expensive at this point. So foods and meals were quite expensive, but it was worth every penny of it to be able to engage, reach out, and work alongside some of these speakers. So we also ran into the gentleman that runs Why Christianity. That was a fun time seeing him again. We ran into him a couple of times in another Ministry to Muslims event. It was good to see him again. We also ran into God Logic Apologetics while we're there. I guess we were in his home turf. So he swang by and said hi for a bit. On the road with Jesus with Rhodey Fisher. We ran into her out there. That was great time with her. Ended up not being able to do the video with her, but we were able to get it set up for when we are back here. So I'm on her channel coming up. So again, these connections are great. And I think that's what these sort of conferences really present, is the connections and then the hands-on approach. So if you guys are looking at doing our Strong Tower conference next year, just make sure that you have everything booked in advance, ready to go. Expect LA traffic. It's not fun. Driving is not fun there, but it was a good time. You've got the main conference event, and then you've got the outreaches that go on there, and they are worth staying for every situation, every event, because you really, if you're just looking to learn about Islam, learn about how to reach out to people, you can do that on a video. You can do that online. But to actually be there in person, talk to the leaders in this field, and to be able to do the outreach itself, there really is no equal to these sort of conferences that we have. So I know my wife and I flew out, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, so my streaming was sporadic. I ended up not being able to stream, even though I did try. It's just my connection wasn't very good, and that failed horribly. Although I know So Elohim, my wife, has some videos coming up from it that should be rather interesting, to say the least. I'd say my biggest takeaway from this conference itself was the engagement, being able to reach out to people, being able to engage them on the street, and really sharpening how best to do walk-up apologetics to a Muslim. I know So Elohim has her strategy, and it is very effective. I have my own. They're different, but yet both seem to be effective. Mine all revolves around asking questions. Just asking, hey, I would like to understand a bit more about Allah. Can you help me? And normally that gets them, the Muslims, in the feel of, okay, I can teach you something. I need to help you understand. And from there, you can guide the conversations, you can engage with them, and really understand where they are coming from and what their understanding is of Islam. Because there are vast differences in understandings between Muslims. Some of them are well versed, they're ready, they're set, and some of them just don't know some of the things. I know I had the pleasure of speaking to one Muslim who said that he really didn't read the Quran very much. He really didn't understand anything. He barely read the Quran. So we were able to walk through some of the surahs and talk about the purpose of God, how powerful he is, what he can and can't do. And I'll talk about a couple of those in just a moment. Hey, welcome. No stick figure, very nice. About the extent of my drawing abilities personally, right there, stick figures. My wife, on the other hand, puts me in the dust. So, a couple of things with the Muslims that we were able to engage with out there, at least the ones that I was able to talk with. Again, I started off with the simple question. I want to understand more about Allah and understand the concepts. Primarily, I was asking questions about his power and his authority. Because if he created this world, and some Muslims will say this, but he can't enter into this world. That seems kind of like a weak God, in my opinion. If he creates something and can't enter into it, it doesn't make sense. Why would you build a house and then lock yourself permanently out of it? Not the best of designs, in my opinion. But I was able to talk to at least a couple Muslims about that. And again, whenever you're talking about it and they're really not wanting to engage the topic, or it seems that they really don't know, let them know that, just saying, I don't know, is a valid answer. The valid answer. I don't know. Maybe I need to look into it a bit more. My strategy is, if I can make you search the truth, then you're really searching for Jesus, if you know it or not, because I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So if you're searching for the truth, you're searching for Jesus's face, if you know it or not. So I was able to talk to that one. The second one was a bit more, he was more versed and more firm in his beliefs. That one was an interesting conversation, to say the least. He kept referring back to how Christians believe that God entered into the world, and their normal stance with that is, how could you really believe God would pee, that God would poop, that God would eat, that God would get hungry? You really, that's all beneath God. Well, sure, I agree with you. That is beneath God. But because of his love, he was willing to take on that for us. So my response is God too weak to pee? Is God too not powerful enough to poop? Is God not powerful enough to eat? Because what you're really saying is not that God, when you're saying that God couldn't have done that, it's that God can't do that. And if they're saying that God can't do that, then is it really the all-powerful Allah that they're talking about? Even in that conversation with him, although he was firm in stances, he had to admit that if God wanted to, he could enter into this world. He is able to do anything he wants. So if he did want to poop and pee and go through pain of death for his people, he could. And that right there is the chink. That's right there is the opening for the gospel to be able to move in. Now, did I lead him in the sinner's prayer and accept Jesus Christ right there? No, but I got him thinking. And, we're not all harvesters. We don't have to be all harvesters. Some of us are just waterers. Some of us do the planting. But that idea that God could have done that takes away one of the resistances to Christianity that we find in Islam. So we went through everything from the creation to the possibility of God entering the world to redemption, atonement for one's sins. We walk through everything with him. And it's interesting that the most belligerent ones are the ones that have got to walk through everything. And you'll find out that they do this a lot. They change their tactics. They'll change if they realize something's not working. They're trying to say something and they realize, oh, you actually know what I'm saying. You actually know what I'm trying to say, and it's not working. It's not, you're not weak on this. You actually know how to respond to this. Well, okay, I'm going to try this over here. I'm going to try this tactic over here. And then, oh, well, that's not working. So I'm going to go over here and try this tactic. One of the funniest things I've seen is, and this happened in a couple of the conversations, where they'll try one way of doing it and then switch to another way, but both of those ways are in direct contradiction to one another. You can't have both. Either God is all powerful and can do whatever he wants and he doesn't need us at all, or he's too weak to enter creation. His own creation he can't enter. But yet they'll try to argue both, one right after the other. It's like, guys, consistency here. So I guess if you ever on the streets with a Muslim and they start doing that, or even in the comments section, and they start doing that, just refer back, say, wait, you were just saying this over here, but now you're saying this over here. How are these consistent with one another? And that's really showing them the inconsistency of their stance. Another thing we did, we were able to engage with some atheists. I was able to engage with one. I guess the issue with me is I end up in a long conversation whenever I'm at one of these outreaches, whichever one they are, and I'm engaging with either Muslims or atheists or agnostics or anything. I end up in a 15-minute to 20-minute conversation with each of them, at least. So if they engage, it's going to be a long conversation. There's never a real quick, fast conversation. It's a long, drawn-out conversation. So with the atheists, it was a question of absolute morality versus personal morality. And he was saying, well, it's just up to each person to decide. I'm like, really? Why is that? And eventually he switched from personal morality is the absolute to, well, it's all cultural morality, and it's the group conscience that decides one way or the other if something is moral or immoral. I was like, really? Why is that? And eventually he came to a non-conclusion in that way that he just doesn't understand. We just can't understand how everything works in this world. I was like, well, absolute morality would answer all of that and fit best. We went through with the atheists. I went through creation versus evolution. We jumped around to Hitler, talked about that, it was just everywhere. And he was doing the same thing that Muslims do. Whenever something wasn't working, he would switch. He'd switch. Well, now I want to talk about this topic. Now, what about this? 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 The problem with that is if you're not paying attention, you just think it's a normal conversation going. If you pay attention, though, they're really admitting defeat in that way. They're saying this is no longer working. This concept that I'm presenting is not valid, obviously, so I have to change to something else. Because if I continue to pursue this path, it doesn't work for what I want it to be. So, okay, I'll switch. And it was kind of funny because I ended up teaching him a bit about evolution. It's funny whenever you have to actually teach them what they believe in order to teach them why it's wrong, why it's faulty. And I'm pretty sure that just comes out of not knowing what they believe themselves. and not really having their beliefs confronted. So again, interesting being able to walk up and engage with these people and talk with them. I'm really grateful for each one that was willing to do that. Really shows integrity. There were a lot of people who were just no. Now, had some opportunities at some dawa tables, which was pretty good. It was pretty fun. We went out to a couple of parks. One in particular was called a park, but I wasn't really sure if it was a park. It's kind of like a fountain on one side and a fountain on the other side, and there's a long strip in between where people were just walking, and there were booths set up on either side, and it looked more like some sort of farmer's market than anything else, but they weren't really selling anything, so whatever. So you had your Christians set up, you had your Dawa, your Muslims set up, ready to go. And my wife, Elle, went and engaged with them for a while. Samuel Green went and talked to them. Our whole group, because we went in a group there. Yeah, wonderful wife. I don't know why they called it a park. There wasn't a park. I didn't see a park. I saw concrete. But it is what it is. So, yeah, so we engaged them the first day. And that's really where we could be there. The longest was the first day. So, you go up to the Muslims, you start engaging them, you start showing them what the Quran actually says. They're quite quick once they realize you actually know what you're talking about. They seem to fold up and no longer want to talk. I know for a fact that they did that to my wife pretty early on. Once they realize, oh, this little girl actually knows her sources. Ooh, she's actually pulling up the Quran and referring to it. Oh, this isn't what we want. We want stupid people who are illiterate, who wouldn't necessarily know about it. So they eventually gave up, refused to talk to anyone. I didn't even get up to the bat yet, okay? They gave up before I even got to the bat. So I'm like, okay, fine. Whatever. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll figure something else out, right? So they're set up there. There's a bit of a grassy area. It's not very wide street. I mean, you can gauge on either side and walk down the center. They're stationed right across from some museum or something like that. I'm not sure. Yes, my wife referred to me. I didn't want to spoil your stories, my beloved. I wanted to rely on my personal stories. If you want to give your stories, you're more than welcome to come join me for a bit. See, there's a nice open space here. But if you do not want to, that's okay. But yes, they did snatch the Quran out of their hands, even though they clearly were marked, take it on their signs, that there were free Qurans for anyone to take. After my wife took one, because she was invited to, they took the Quran back out of her hand when she started reading it. Yes, it seems you have the truth. After all, they really want you to be reading the Quran, right? That kind of ticked me off a little bit. My wife says she figured that they wanted people to know what the Quran says. Only the parts that they wanted to tell, obviously. Because all of the Quran isn't really logical. Such as my most popular shorts, I guess. If the Quran was logical, I wouldn't have many shorts now, would I? Which is always so much fun. But yes, so they had theirs set up. They refused to talk to anyone from our team at all. They said, we're not talking to you. Every time they would approach, my wife would approach, they would just refuse to talk. Even though they were engaging other people, they kept saying, and on the side, they say, ask a Muslim on the side of their little tent they had set up. Ask a Muslim, okay? So my wife would go up and try to ask a Muslim. Again, refuse. they would start talking to other people, and my wife would try to engage with the Muslims, and they would refuse to talk to her in any way, shape, or form. So I'm like, okay, you guys want to play this game? We can play this game. So luckily our team had a banner. It was probably about, it was pretty tall, maybe about 8 foot tall. So we got that banner set up. It had Muhammad blind leading a bunch of other Muslims. You had the caliphs, you had imams, you had all these other Muslims following this blind prophet who is leading them off a cliff. And Jesus is standing there saying, "Come back to me." And then underneath that is what Jesus was, who he was, what he did. And then underneath that was all the things Muhammad did. And that list was pretty extensive, let's just say that. All, of course, from the Quran and the Hadiths, fully backed and ready. All references available, although they weren't really necessary because the Muslims never wanted to engage on anything on that banner. But, you know, unfortunately, we were in California. There was a strong wind coming. So every time this poor banner would fall over quite often. And I'm standing there like, man, I'm not able to talk to these Muslims. They don't want to talk to me, obviously. They didn't even get to me before they just gave up. Yes, she has. The question is, did Ellie ever draw Muhammad? And the answer is yes. So have I. Mine isn't as good, though. Mine's a little stick figure. It's on some video a long time ago. But I did actually do that live, where I was like, I downloaded a Muhammad using like paint or some free thing. Okay, it was dorky. Okay, but I did it. Okay. Well, this banner, like I said, the banner will fall over quite a bit. So I went ahead and just held it. Just held it there. I'm standing there, maybe 15 feet away, 10 to 15 feet away is where the Muslims were set up. They had their booth there, and I'm standing here. I'm holding up the sign, and I'm like, there's a lot of stuff listed here. And they keep yelling out, come get information about Islam. Come learn about Islam, yada, 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 yada. So I'm like, I can do the same. So I start yelling out, come read the truth of Islam. Come read about Muhammad, how he did. And then I would pick something off the list, such as how a 54-year-old man married a young girl of 6 and consummated the marriage when she was 9. And talked about Muhammad and how women beating is in Islam, how Muhammad ordered the rape of captive women in front of their husbands, and nothing from the Muslims about what I'm saying. I stood there for hours in sunlight. Actually, I'm kind of surprised I'm not toasty. I'm actually kind of really surprised. I didn't get actually any sunburn from it. I was in the sun a lot. So I'm happy about that. So I stood there and I just read down the list for quite a while. Just kept going and going and going. Well, the Muslims eventually got annoyed. They tried to do the nice Muslim approach. Invited me to, why am I standing out in the sun? Wouldn't it be more nice back here behind, the tent in the shade? It would be much nicer if I were to stand back there. After all, it would, it'd be more enjoyable. You're out here in the sun. See, everyone else left you and they just left you there standing in the sun. And I figured, you know what? They were ignoring us. They would not engage with us. I won't engage with them. Not a word to them. Continue. So about every 3 to 4 minutes, because I didn't want to spam, I would shout out one of the things on the list constantly. And this went on for hours. We were there, I forget how many hours. We were there for a long time. It was midday to sunset. by the time we were actually supposed to leave before that, except I did not realize I didn't have an alarm set like that. So if I would have had the alarm set, I would have been good. But nope, we ended up staying there much longer, but it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed the engagement. And if you guys want to join in on this live stream, if you were there at the conference or want to be there in the future, you can join in and we can talk about the conference. The link is, I think I pinned it to the top of the live chat. I don't normally do these open ones, but I figured, we're talking about this, might as well. So, dusk starts to come. People are getting ready for dinner. I look over at the museum that's right there. I mean, it's not far from me. Maybe 50 feet or so away from me on the other side of this walkway. And they're getting set up for dinner. And they got all this food set up. And I'm like, oh, so there's some sort of event going on. Oh, this is kind of cool. So I'm over here yelling about Islam. And there's an event going on over there. Oh, this is kind of cool. I wonder what event it is. Well, I'm just going to keep, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep on hitting this. As long as I can be here, I'm going to be spreading the truth about Islam. Because I know these Muslims over here aren't going to be doing that. They're going to be only showing what nice Islam presents. They're only be showing the parts they want the world to see. And I want to show them what the real world is like. How Islam truly is. So eventually they're getting packed up, ready to go. They got people over there eating. I'm still going. Nothing's stopping me. I got water. I'm going. I'm drinking the water, keep myself hydrated, keep going. And lo and behold, this older guy comes over. And he informs me that he is a scholar. He's a scholar. And challenges us. I was there with a Christian sister. And challenges us to say, where in the Bible does Jesus ever say that he is God? Well, my sister there is, she's well-versed, to say the least. And she took it on, like, oh, just boom, take it. So she pulls up Revelation right there and starts where Jesus is saying that he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end, Lord God Almighty. And he just turns around and leaves. I'm like, I thought you were a scholar. Aren't you supposed to engage? Aren't you supposed to, be able to back up when you make a claim? When you boast about it? Aren't you supposed to be able to engage? Because he didn't even give any sort of, oh, no, you're misunderstanding it. Or, oh, no, that's not what it says. Or, oh, no, that's not reliable. Nothing like that. He just runs away. Just runs away. Well, while she was looking that up, he's over there yelling about us being over here. How dare we be over here? This is outrageous that we would be saying these things. I'm like, what on this list? Can you point to anything on this list that's untrue? And he can't. He refuses to engage with what's actually written there. Instead, he decides to try to refute us other ways. He says, oh, you knew we were going to be here. And I'm like, I don't even know what this event is. I just stood here because the Muslims were here and we had the sign right here and it was blowing over. So I just held it. And I'm just leaning there on the sign, my legs crossed and leaning on the sign because my legs were tired by that point. It's been hours. And he came with this accusation that I guess it was an event that was banned from Israel because it was anti-Jewish. And this was a whole Muslim event over there across the way. And it was a big celebration of this movie that was released and playing over at this museum or whatever it was. I'm pretty sure it was a museum. And God just had me there at that moment across from them, yelling out about what Muhammad had done. And he's over there accusing us. You knew we were going to be over here. You knew. That's why you set up. You planned this out. You set this up. You knew we were going to be here. And I'm sitting there like, one, I've been here much longer than you have. Two, I didn't even pick the spot. They did. The Muslims did. And three, it's not even my sign. So he's over there trying to shame us in any way, shape, or form, or say how racist we are, how bigoted we are because we did this. And then our dear sister over there started reading the Bible, and he promptly ran away, and I called it out for what it was, because he laid down the challenge and then ran away like a coward. There's difference between saying, well, I just don't have anything to deal with that, or, oh, you're right. It's, no, you need to do this. You can't possibly do this. You need to prove this right now. And, oh, you proved it. Bye. No, that's not how you deal with it. That's not how an adult deals with it. That's how a little child deals with it. Not an adult. Definitely not someone who claims to be this great scholar that knows everything, that knows the Bible back and forth, and knows the Quran in and out, and knows all the hadiths. That's not how you act. Grow up. Grow a backbone. Stand up for what you believe. If what we're doing is wrong, show us. Yet he could not, and he ran away. Then we got yelled at by some woman who's standing over there, who, again, thought we were there only because the event was there, and not because we had no idea about anything, and we were just standing there because some Muslims wouldn't engage with us. It's all the Muslims' fault. They wouldn't talk to us. So we decided to give a counter argument for everyone to hear. And it was, I found, to be extremely effective. So that was that day, and that was basically the last day I was able to really engage much of it on it. We were able to engage the next day and a little bit, but we were only able to be there for maybe an hour and a half before we had to leave. And then get everyone to the airport to make sure we're all set, ready to go. So I guess in conclusion, the conference was well worth it. If you were online only, I'm sorry, you missed out on the best parts, because the best parts are being there in person. The best parts are events late at night that you aren't scheduled, that you go out and you have dinner with some of the speakers and are able to engage them, and then crazy things happen. And those are the things that become inside jokes that people outside won't get. And then you end up being able to go out and reach people and engage with people and talk with them and actually put forth what you believe and be able to defend your beliefs on the street, just drop of a hat, ready to go. And there really isn't any replacement for that hands-on training. And again, you can't really get that online. So I guess long story short, because we're at 40 minutes, which was a very long time, I'll take any questions you have. I've been trying to engage as much as possible with the chat. But I would encourage anyone that can attend to attend next year. So that's Our Strong Tower. They have it every September. My wonderful wife seems to be wanting to join now. Hi, wonderful wife. Yes, I am in a forest. You guys can't tell, but I can tell every time I walk in here. It is nothing but forest, because of my wonderful wife. She likes plants now. And that she has a lot of now. Lots of it. So, I was just wrapping up, actually.
I know. I just figured I'd come say goodbye.
You come say goodbye. Okay, well, fine. So I was just saying that if you guys can come to our Strong Tower next year in September, please plan on it. It's normally in LA. I think they're still doing it in the same place every year. Well, not same place, but same general area.
I think
I
it's
would
just
say.
general California.
General
I'm not
California.
Super sure. We did travel around some.
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Again, driving, not so fun. I'd say that was the biggest downside. Oh, she shrugs. She didn't have to drive. I drove.
Yeah.
She got the opportunity of not driving.
That's what husbands are for. At least one specific husband out of everyone.
I love you too. So that one, another conference that's very similar to that one that we greatly enjoy is Doctrine for the Block.
Yeah.
Hosted by it's hosted out in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you're in California, you're kind of set. You got these two conferences pretty close to each other, ready to go. I mean, really, that's pretty easy. So I know there was another ministry to Muslims that was in North Carolina that we were able to go to. That was our first one, and then from there, that ended up opening up this door, and we were able to go to this conference.
And the North Carolina one will be a yearly conference now too.
Oh, good.
Since there's a new team of ministry to Muslims that's out there.
I'm glad, because that isn't. I can drive there, and it's not LA driving, so I can actually accomplish something and feel like I'm actually going somewhere. It took forever.
He was scared of any of the.
I hate traffic.
No, but he was just scared of like the one lane that actually got you anywhere.
Oh,
it was the carpool lane.
I used the carpool lane last day. I used it. I swear.
Yeah, and it was the one day that you actually beat us somewhere. So
that's true. I did actually beat you somewhere. I don't know how.
You used the carpool lane.
But you were in the carpool lane too.
Yeah, I don't know how you beat me still. I'm just gonna.
It was weird because I swore she was going to call me like 5 minutes before we got there, and I got there and I'm like, where did I beat her? Really? And I was normally driving pretty slow too. I wasn't racing anyone.
Yeah. Maybe the slug on the side of the road.
So something about ideas. What ideas?
Yeah, so Rick had this idea. He said he imagined the picture of Muhammad with big ears overhearing an apocryphal story. And he referenced Kran 9:61. And among them are those who abuse the prophet and say he is an ear.
He is an ear. Well, yeah, because they kept repeating stuff. I mean, if you look at the apocryphal events, a lot of those line with what is stated in the Quran of stories that are told.
Yeah. Now, it was really interesting because, like, we've known this, but the way that Samuel Green phrased it was really interesting. But he essentially said about how, like, in the Bible, he referenced how many times Jesus specifically quoted the Old Testament, and yet there's not a single quote of the Bible in the Quran. There's lots of times that it's referenced, but quotes are very important.
That's true.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, it's very important for Christians. I don't know how important it is for Muslims. Definitely in my comment section. Definitely when I'm already quoting the Quran.
Yeah.
They don't seem to like to quote anything. I'm the one always quoting the verses. And I'm like, whose holy book is this anyway? It's not mine. Just to let you know. So I guess one of the other things that was interesting, and it wouldn't been able to do it if you were just online, was going to the Muslim bookstore. We had the opportunity to go to a Muslim bookstore while we're out there. I found it interesting. Actually, the parts I found more interesting than anything else was the children's section.
Yeah, I actually had Hatun read me a children's Islamic book. So, and then she also, before that, she was going through the like grade school literature and the quizzes that they would give to these grade school kids about Islam. Yeah.
Well, I found what I was doing was more of the basic children's stories, comparing them to what the Bible teaches, what the actual stories were, the original before Muhammad took them, and finding out what the missing pieces were. primarily, one of the more interesting ones was about Noah, or Nun, or Prophet Nun, as they like to call him. I don't know why. But so Noah, the whole story is it switched around some things. Noah wasn't just a righteous guy. He was a prophet. He was speaking about Allah to everyone, and no one was listening except for his friends. And his friends and him were the ones that built the ark. And then all the animals came in. Rain came, flooded. I mean, the rest, that story is the same. He survived, but it wasn't him and his family that survived. It was him and his friends who survived. Family was completely taken out. The whole concept of family was removed. No sons, no daughters-in-law, no wife, none of that. All of that was removed. That relationship was absent from the story. After the flood was taken away, all that's there is Noah comes out of the ark and says, "Blessed be Allah. Allah is great. He makes the land safe." And that's the end. There's no relationship there that we find in the Bible's account. The relationship there between God and man, where God makes the promise, hey, I'm not going to flood the rest of the world again. I'm not going to destroy it in this way.
Yeah, Allah isn't a loving God. He's very vindictive. So any reason for him to give up his power is probably not going to happen. But speaking of the importance of family, I got to get back to
the kids. Yep.
But Rick, I will highly consider making your dreams come true, because that sounds pretty fun. And it sounds like one of those like carnival-y, like fair type illustrations too, where like everything's just like characterized and massive ears just fits perfectly into that. So
if they want to check that out, they should check it out on your channel, right?
Yes, L-I-S-O Elohim. And I will see you guys later. Thanks for having me.
She is linked in this channel. There's a link to her channel there, as well as all the speakers and all the other apologists, YouTube apologists we met there. We went ahead and I linked them all in the chat below, at least everyone I could remember. Again, I apologize. It was a long couple of weeks. There are a lot of people I talked to. Not all of them very gracious. So thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and wrap on up and join my wife over there with our little kitties. So, but just as always, we will end in prayer, because I haven't done that for a couple of weeks because we haven't had a live stream almost all of this month. So let's go ahead and end in prayer. Lord of heaven and earth, thank you for the opportunity we have to shine your light. Thank you for your love and your devotion, a love that never fails, never gives up, has no conditions or hooks upon it. Thank you for that love that loved me first, even when I was lost. And thank you for the opportunity to share that with others. I ask for your hand to be upon everyone that is here and all the conferences that we've had and that we'll be having. I ask for protection to all the speakers as they go back to their lives, that you cover them in your grace and your wisdom. I pray for our friend B, that his family will do well, that everything he is struggling with, that you will bless him. I pray for Jessica, who joined us on a live stream a long time ago, and I'm still lifting her up in prayer. Lord, I pray that you would put your hand upon her, guide her to know you, and know the life that can only be found in you. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray, the name above all names. Amen.